Hey there. Was I supposed to? There it is. Hey. Hey there. Hey, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome back to Shaquana's Sage Dragon Book Show. It is Saturday, July 5th. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. It was cool going on social media, seeing my friends and family members enjoying the holiday. It's a complicated holiday for some of us because of the meaning of it. So, yet America belongs to all of us. And if you think about it, as Black and Brown people, we played a role, our ancestors, in the Revolutionary War and in that revolution for independence. So we can really think about our participation in that holiday from that perspective and enjoy it. As we continue to like force America to rise to what it's supposed to be. Like we have to like push for that. So 4th of July, I live in Rochester. We honor Frederick Douglass. He put that message out. I noticed Jack and Jill. I'm a member of Jack and Jill of America, life member. And I saw on their page that they posted his famous speech. So if you are interested in that, go to the Rochester, New York Jack and Jill of America page and you can see that speech. But today we are getting into a fun episode about summer reads. And I wanted to delve into books that focus on being on the beach. Maybe it's because I'm craving some beach in my life. I'll be visiting a beach soon, probably next month. But until then, why not read about it? So, over the 2023 and 2024, I read Sunny's Hostin's trilogy. She did a book trilogy, and I'm going to dive into that today. But what I'd like to also do with this episode is not only talk about the book, but we're going to get into the beaches that the context of the book took place. So, and I really invite you all to participate in this conversation because I want to hear, for those of you who are listening, about your beach experiences. I want to hear about beaches you've visited, great beaches, just beach, and books that you've read. But that's the whole theme of it. All right, so let's get into it. So first off, the trilogy is there's three books that I'm covering. So first is Summer on the Bluffs. The second is Summer on Sag Harbor, and then the final book was last year, which was Highland Beach. Let me first start off a little bit about the author because I like to also give props. So many people know Assumption Houston. She's a very successful Latina woman, Puerto Rican from the Bronx. She is the co host of The View, which won 5 Emmys. She's an author, she's a mom, she's also a member of Jack and Jill, a lawyer and wife, and a very positive woman out there doing her thing. So, in addition to that, she wrote these books for fun. They are light reads, but I would say that they are a solid 3.5, maybe even 4, because they are are fun and they're interesting, but you're also getting some history. So it's all wrapped up in it. Let's see. All right, so let's get to Summer on the Bluffs. So Summer on the Bluffs was the first book in this series, and so the concept of her books are They are the Summer on the Bluffs one. The plot is Martha's Vineyard. That's the setting, rather. And it's about these three women that grew up going to Martha's Vineyard. At the time of the book, they're women, but they started going to Martha's Vineyard together when they were little girls because the one of the main characters of the book named Amma, she's this older, sophisticated black woman who trans traveled from Louisiana to New York way back in like the 50s and really became a successful finance woman in finance and made a lot of money and ended up meeting the man of her dreams who was a lawyer, and together they got married and just lived this phenomenal life. And they never had children of their own, so they started to like adopt, not really like formally, but adopt these girls and through different ways. So by the time the girls, and they helped raise them and give them, they afforded them a life. They helped send them to great schools and get them culture and talent. So now these women are very successful. One of them is a corporate lawyer, another one is a scientist. I can't remember what the other one is, a chef. So they, actually, maybe I'm thinking scientist, lawyer. I can't remember what the other one is because now that I think about it, I think her partner was a chef. Anyhow, creme de la creme of Black society. They're in the Bluffs. And, it just gets into romantic conflicts and things of that nature. And I would say you would enjoy the book. So I'm not going to get too into the plot of it beyond what I said, because I don't want to give any spoilers. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about the setting of Martha's Vineyard. So, Martha's Vineyard here's a picture that there's an article from Martha's Vineyard magazine. And when Sunny did the book Summer on the Bluffs, they covered it. And she talked about being 15 when she started going to Martha's Vineyard. And her daughter was that age when the book was written. And she said that growing up in the Bronx, she wasn't used to seeing money Black people. And she didn't know that this world existed. It was like a fairy tale. And she wove some of that into the plot of the book. Now that I didn't realize this part of her history, but one of the young ladies, it was similar. She was living in the Bronx, living modestly, and this Black couple comes and starts taking them, whisking them away, her away to Martha's Vineyard. And then the next year brought another little girl, the next year another little girl. So that just opened up an entire world to her. And then she said she asked her son how he feels about it, and he said it's his happy place. So apparently, getting to more about Martha's Vineyard, I have heard that over and over again. And there was just a show on Netflix called, is it Finding Forever or Forever? Great show that got a lot of positive press. And in it, the Black family goes to Martha's Vineyard. But you hear a lot of accounts that um, people feel so at home there. Like they really enjoy seeing other Black folks there, living life, feeling freer. And I'd love to understand this more. I've never been myself. So if anyone is out there, part of the reason why I wanted to do this episode was to hear more about people's experiences. Hey, Luck said he went to Martha Vineyard last summer. Oh, cool. Drove from New York to Cape Cod. Okay. What's that drive like? Hmm. Sounds really cool. Thanks, Dej. So, getting back to the more about this Martha's Vineyard. So, I found out in my research there's a new book that came out, I think in 2023, that uncovers the history of Black ownership on Martha's Vineyard. It's called Black Ownership on Martha's Vineyard, A History by Thomas Dresser and Richard Taylor. And, you know, there's only about 700 Black people that live in Martha's Vineyard during the off season. And yet, I was looking to see like how many people touch down during the summer, and it's over, some accounts said over 100,000 Black people, especially in August, because they have a thing called Black August. So that must be really cool. And Barack Obama and the president and various, you know, Black wealthy folks and successful people go there. And this article here talked about how the history of it, you know, how it became the inkwell. So here's some more history about Martha's Vineyard. There's this beautiful looking inn. I could imagine. I wonder how much it costs to get a room there now. Anybody know? But it does look beautiful, and it's black owned. It's called Oaks Bluff. And this article talked about, Ebony did this in 2022, and talks about how Oaks Bluff became the Black summer mecca. And years ago, I remember seeing the movie Inkwell, which I think is still a classic to this day. Anybody ever see that movie with Lorenz Tate? Yeah. So let's see. I think that I got a little, it's a little bit of a pause there. But yeah, so I guess that pretty much wraps that. Oh, Mina. Hey, Mina. Love that movie. I know. I haven't seen it in a while. It's a really good one. I think movies like that are cool to stay in the rotation. Mina, have you ever been to Martha's Vineyard? Luck says for some reason, though it was a good distance to drive, it wasn't bad. But I think the story is what the driver is like when you get to Cape Cod and you're driving around Cape Cod. I've never been in a community with drivers that courteous. I believe it to be the most courteous driving community in the world. Wow. Okay, I wouldn't have known that. That's really cool. What about the food? Any what do people think about that, like the restaurants, if you've been? So it's on the list. It's on the bucket list. I'd like to go to Martha's Vineyard and see all of the fabulousness of it. All right. So moving on. So after Sunny wrote the first one, Some on the Bluffs, she wrote Some on Sag Harbor because I guess there was like a energy for the books. People really liked them. And like I said, they are enjoyable, something to just kick back and read. Now, Sag Harbor is in Long Island. Now, I have been out to Sag Harbor and I have been in the Hamptons area. So, Sag Harbor is a hidden enclave known as Sands, Sag Harbor Hills, Azurest, and Nevaeh, close-knit community of African American elites who escape the city and enjoy the beautiful warm weather and beaches. Very few know about this part of the Hamptons on Long Island, and the residents like it that way. The elitism of it all. Against the odds, Olivia Jones has blazed her own career path and built her name in the finance world. And this is what the plot is about. So again, it's the same characters. You don't have to read all three of the books to follow along because the books can be read like individually because she'll like give some background information about it. And it's kind of like the soap operas where you could just pick up wherever it is and you'll catch on. So that's what I like about them too. I just enjoyed reading about the context of these Black beaches. So that's what made me enjoy the series and want to read all three of them. But this one focuses in on one of the characters who's Olivia. She had a very traumatic experience happen where her father was murdered and when she was little and she never knew the reason why. And it's a spoiler, and I don't want to give it away, but I would say this was to me the best one. So if you're like, maybe I'll read one of them, check out the Sag Harbor one. But the reason that her once she found out about her father's death, she's grieving. She also but she was gifted from her godfather this home in Sag Harbor, this amazing home. So she falls in love with the community. She also gets involved with this effort to preserve the few Black people that are left living there because there's all of these efforts to push them out. You know, the cost of living in that community. I just read an article yesterday in the New York Times, and it was talking about how 2 days ago, the price of melons in the Hamptons, are you ready for this? $400. Someone was paying $400 for some melons. Would you ever? In the Hamptons, and $100 for a lobster roll. That lobster roll better be chef's kiss. And I've noticed that lobster rolls have become more and more expensive, but $100? I mean, really? So it's really gotten very, very expensive out there. So in the book, her Olivia's, she's in this effort to try to figure out, and she comes up with a very clever way because remember, she was a finance guru. So she is successful. So it has that like happy ending that I think we all need more stories of. So let's get into a little bit more about the Sag Harbor community. I was doing research about it. 82 Black people live in Sag Harbor today, 1.9% of the population. And I wonder how those people, because a lot of them are older, so I'm curious about the legacy and how they're like, are they going to be able to pass those homes that they have down to their kids? There was this great quote that I came across. Historically, Black beach communities on Long Island working to protect area's unique character. And this person from the um, Eastville Community Historical Society said, here you could have a beachfront deeded to your property. You could leave your door open and not be afraid of the threat of the Ku Klux Klan, which was very prevalent even out here on Long Island, said Georgette Greer Key, executive director of the Eastville Community Historical Society. So that was another one of these areas similar to Martha's Vineyard that got founded. Here's another slide. Can we show that? It's the visionary women of Sag Harbor, because there were women who um, were 70 years ago, and they were sisters. One of them, I believe, was an architect, and another one was an educator, and they just happened upon coming here to vacation. And similar to what Lucky mentioned about the peace, they felt that and just felt a desire to have more Black people have access to it. So they figured out a way to help them get financing. and way led it to way. And before you know it, it was a community, which I think is great. I have a video that I want to show. Can we cue that video up? It's on Long Island's a beachfront haven for black families.
Learn to swim in Harlem if we didn't go to the Harlem Y. There was no effort to really encourage youngsters in Harlem and Brooklyn to learn how to swim. So a lot of my friends never learned how to swim. And that's sad because 3/4 of the world is water. So if you don't know how to survive around water, you're a little more in jeopardy. So, but segregation, that was another cost of segregation and discrimination. You couldn't even learn to swim in New York. New York is surrounded by water.
When most Japanese think about it, it is not in the middle of a vast, smoke-clogged industrial metropolis, but in the tree-lined outskirts of a small American town, a seaport community named Sag Harbor in the state of New York. The history of Sag Harbor, USA, has been tied to the sea. A century ago, its name was known on almost all of the 7 seas. For Sag Harbor was home port to some of the most famous of America's whaling fleet, ships that scoured the world for the most precious and largest of the ocean's creatures.
Many of the African American males that were here established their wealth through the occupation of whaling.
Black folk learned how to sail. Now, we came here on sailboats 300 years ago, but we weren't running those boats. Here, you run your own sailboat. You're in command.
African American women were matriarchs in this community because of their husband's occupation. They owned land here legally before women were allowed to own land. They were head of households because of the wealth that they accumulated together.
Sag Harbor was always a place, especially Eastville, where free blacks lived among natives and among working class white people. And so the idea that all these people living together, doing their thing, in this community, and this is in the 1800s, was, obviously not common.
This house has a history of having 3 families of black ancestry living in it. Because before Sands developed, the summer houses were mine, and the 3 or 4 here, and the few that live on Liberty Street, they were all summer houses. And it's basically from that group that Sands really got started.
Yeah. So that link is, if you want to learn more, you can find that through doing the search Long Island beachfront haven for black families, and I'll drop that link in. But it was very educational to learn about the history of Sag Harbor and the black experience in the Hamptons, and how they've been able to preserve that over time. Also, there's this, if you also are into like books or interested in hearing more experiences, there's a book called Sag Harbor. I've never read it, and it's by that author Colson Whitehead. He's written some very well received books, black author. And from what I understand, I have this, when I was looking, I came across this blog by Sarah Lawrence. And she wrote up a nice write-up of the Sag Harbor book. So it is on my TBR, my to be read list to read. It came out a while ago, maybe 10 years ago or so. And it's kind of like Inkwell. And it's this Colson Whitehead grew up in a middle class or maybe upper middle class environment. I think he grew up in Manhattan, but he used to spend the summers out in Sag Harbor. So that's what the book is about. It's like somewhat his experiences coming of age, but also in the 80s. So some of us Gen Xers could, relate to some of the references that he made in it. So I think that's another good one for young men to read, even men our age to read, to learn more about what it was like for Black men growing up in the 80s and maybe going through traveling through different identities, different experiences. If their parents were like middle class, but they still had family members that who might have been poorer, what was that like? On top of still dealing with racism and just being a human, navigating all of that. So I'm really interested in reading that one as well. So anybody ever go out to the Sag Harbor? Anyone have any stories? There used to be rest in peace B. Smith. Remember her? She was a model, supermodel, and she became like a lifestyle, kind of like the Black Martha Stewart. She had her magazines, she had restaurants. One of them was out in Sag Harbor, and I believe one of them was in DC. So I don't know what businesses are out there. Hey, Sav Key in the building. Hey, how are you? Have you ever been to Sag Harbor? Which I'm trying to collect these beach stories. Or maybe this can be an inspiration for us to venture out to some of these places. Before I move to the last book, I also want to tee up something that the was said in the video about water and swimming, and how discrimination and the redlining and these covenants and all of these policies push certain groups of people away from even having access to beaches, and how that impacts our comfortability around the beach. Collectively, there's some people who love the water, they love being around beaches and open water, but there's some people that don't want to be on boats and who haven't learned swimming. So I wanted to also bring that issue up, and hear from anyone, now or in the future, who's listening, how your life and your experiences have opened you up to being in these beaches, because they are nature. They are part of the beauty of the world. But there's also been a lot of privatization of beaches. I know in parts of the Caribbean, been to Sag. Oh, the Hamptons has it beat every time. Just my point of view. Okay, that makes sense. They have had more investment in that part. I mean, I think it's all part of it. Part of the Hamptons is just another part, and it's separate area. So, but it probably had a lot more investment. Yeah. So in addition to, like I said, the experience of just going to the Hamptons or going out to Martha's Vineyard, I just wonder how people have felt about going to the beaches. Have you felt like you've had access to go to the beach? How do you like doing that, like in the summers? All right, so let me move on to the last book in the series, which is Highland Beach. And again, it's her fiction, summer historical fiction, chick lit. I didn't go into that in the beginning, but I also wanted to share the different genres for anyone out here who's interested in understanding like what categories of books they are. They're fiction, they're like summer reads and that. So I think this is the last book in the trilogy. So a brief summary of it is Highland Beach, the oldest historical Black beach community in America, founded in the late 1800s along the Chesapeake Bay by the son of Frederick Douglass. Inside this proud and secluded community of about 100 private homes is Olivia Jones's legacy. So once again, this book follows Olivia. She learns a part of her history, about her father's side of the family. And that's what leads her into Highland Beach. And Highland Beach is not as known. You don't hear it talked about as much as you do Sag Harbor and, of course, Martha's Vineyard, because I think the difference also is this is way more residential based, whereas Martha's Vineyard is, it's expected that people are going to come there, like it's a tourism area, and they rent homes out. There's places that you can B&B. Here at Highland Beach, I don't think you can even get on it without an invitation. So it's in a different category, but it is still a historical area that Black people have been able to carve out, have homes, and they're still there. So that was really interesting learning about. I think I have a video I want to show. I got a couple of videos to give you more information about it. So let me cue that up. Producer.
Hey everybody, I am on Highland Beach, Maryland. This is a small neighborhood. It's a prominently African-American neighborhood, and is the first African-American beach resort in the United States of America ever, since the founding of this country, or since North America in general has been here. So I wanted to come here because I went to Martha's Vineyard, and so many of you guys told me about the history of Martha's Vineyard before I went there, and I had no idea that Oaks Bluffs in Martha's Vineyard was a vacation haven for Blacks during the segregation. But so when I did some research, I found out that the very first one was in my home state of Maryland. So in Anne Arundel County, right here on the Chesapeake Bay, Charles Douglas, the son of Frederick Douglass, decided to found this place. He went somewhere locally and was turned away because he was Black. And because of that, he decided to found his own thing, so his own resort. So he had a chance meeting with a farmer, bought his land, and founded what you see here, what I'm going to show you here today. And yeah, it's 0.08 square miles of land, but it has 40-something families and 118 people, and it has its own mayor. And I guarantee you haven't heard about this. So let's go on my little exploration of this little small place, and let's check it out together. Yeah, this place was built in 1893. I think it was incorporated in 1922.
See the rest of it, you can go to, hold on. The History of Highland Beach, a Summer Refuge for Blacks During Segregation. And you can go to the gentleman's page while he goes on the tour. But that's really interesting. I mean, I lived in Maryland for 4 years in the early 2000s, and I never heard of anyone talking about Highland Beach. So I have another video I'm going to show as well. Can we cue that up? Anyone in the meantime, heard of Highland Beach? Have you been and visited there? And I have a lot of family who still lives in Maryland. And if any of you all are on the stream, let me know if you have visited or been to Highland Beach. I think that video that's the video from the first segment, which was about Sag Harbor. So check out if you want to learn more about it. The link is called "The History of Highland Beach: A Summer Refuge for Blacks During Segregation," and it's really accessible on. I think it's on YouTube. You can find it. So yeah. So has anyone heard of it? And what beaches have you been to? And what was your experience and memory of beaching? How do you summer? Some of those, I'm just curious out there. Like, does anyone have any beach plans? Leave them in the comments. So, lastly, um, I put together well, actually, I I'll have to upload my playlist later because I don't have it on this page. But I did find a list of books that are about like the beach. So if you're looking for some beach reads, you can check out your summer destination book set at the beach. Penguin Random House put it together, and it looks like it has some amazing books. The latest one that I'm getting ready to read. I just started the other night. It's not about a beach. At a lake house, but it's written by I think her name is Shanara Williams, and it's like a thriller. So I'll be doing some thriller series coming up. So I've got to see. I haven't read this author yet, so I'll see. Shanora Williams, Whispers of the Lake, and I had heard online that it was pretty good. So that wraps this episode. I really enjoyed delving into the connection of beaches and books because, two of my favorite things. So I hope you all have a good Saturday, good rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week.